James Webb Telescope just captured first real image of 3I/Atlas. What you're about to see cannot be unseen. The James Webb Telescope has captured something that was never meant to reach your eyes. Somewhere in the frozen depths between stars, an object is racing through our solar system at velocities that defy conventional physics. The classified image that leaked 72 hours ago shows something impossible. 3I/ATLAS, initially cataloged as an interstellar comet, is radiating a beam of coherent light across 300 million kilometers of void. Not scattered radiation, not reflected sunlight, a laser-straight projection originating from a surface that shouldn't exist. The infrared signature captured by Webb's MIRI instrument reveals thermal patterns that match no known celestial phenomenon. Instead, what emerges from the data is a geometric lattice, crystalline in structure, pulsing with energy signatures that astronomers are quietly describing as organized, intentional, and utterly alien. This isn't speculation anymore. The numbers don't lie. And what they're telling us is that we're being observed by something that knows we're watching back. The image itself defies every protocol of deep space photography. When Webb's near-infrared camera locked onto the coordinates provided by ground-based tracking systems, it captured 37 individual frames over an 18-minute exposure window. Only one frame survived the automated data processing system. The other 36 were flagged by algorithmic filters designed to eliminate sensor artifacts and cosmic ray interference. But they weren't artifacts. Independent analysis of the corrupted files reveals that each deleted frame contained progressively clearer views of the object's core structure, as if something was adjusting itself, optimizing its appearance for observation. By the time the final frame was captured, 3I/ATLAS had configured itself into a form that Webb's instruments could barely process. The resulting image shows an elongated nucleus wrapped in concentric shells of reflective material, each layer rotating at different angular velocities, creating an optical illusion that makes depth perception impossible. Scientists attempting to calculate its actual size have produced estimates ranging from 200 meters to over 40 kilometers. The object appears to be multiple sizes simultaneously, violating basic principles of observational astronomy. Then the spectroscopic data arrived and everything changed. Webb's spectroscopy instruments detected emission lines that don't correspond to any element on the periodic table. The wavelengths measured fall into gaps where nothing should exist, forbidden zones where quantum mechanics says atoms cannot emit light. Yet there it was, undeniable proof that 3I/ATLAS is composed of matter that operates under different physical laws. Material scientists who reviewed the classified spectra described compounds with impossible molecular geometries, structures that would require bonding angles that quantum theory explicitly prohibits. One researcher calculated that the tensile strength of the object's outer shell would exceed that of carbon nanotubes by a factor of 10,000. This isn't advanced materials engineering. This is a wholesale rewriting of chemistry itself. And it's traveling through our solar system right now, decelerating as it approaches the inner planets, shedding velocity through mechanisms we cannot detect or measure. The trajectory tells a story that astrophysicists refuse to publish. After crossing the heliopause 18 months ago, 3I/ATLAS executed a series of course corrections that gravitational models cannot explain. It didn't follow a hyperbolic escape trajectory like genuine interstellar objects should. Instead, it curved inward, threading through the Kuiper belt with precision that suggests active navigation. 3 separate observatories recorded infrared bursts from the object's trailing edge, each burst occurring exactly as the object's path required adjustment to avoid debris fields and dwarf planets. The timing was perfect, impossibly perfect. Probability analyses show that random outgassing couldn't produce this trajectory. The likelihood of natural processes creating this path sits at 1 in 10 to the 19th power. For context, that's a statistical impossibility. What we're witnessing isn't a comet caught in solar gravity. We're watching controlled flight through a mapped course, and whoever or whatever is piloting this object has been planning this route for potentially thousands of years. Military tracking stations detected the anomaly before Webb ever turned its mirrors toward the object. Classified telemetry from Space Force's Deep Space Surveillance Network shows that 3I/ATLAS emitted a burst of X-ray radiation, precisely as it crossed the orbit of Neptune. The burst lasted exactly 3.14 seconds, pi to 2 decimal places, and contained modulated frequency patterns that data analysts immediately recognized as non-random. The signal wasn't directed at Earth. It was transmitted perpendicular to the ecliptic plane, aimed at a region of space containing no known stellar systems. Within 48 hours, radio telescopes in Australia picked up a response, a return signal originating from empty interstellar space, carrying the same modulation signature. The objects are communicating. They're coordinating. And whatever conversation is happening out there in the dark, we're not part of it. We're simply in the middle of something much larger than ourselves. The leaked image contains details that were meant to be classified indefinitely. Embedded in the raw data file is metadata showing that Webb's observation was flagged for immediate security review by automated systems linked to defense intelligence databases. The image triggered keyword algorithms designed to identify potential technological artifacts in astronomical data. Within minutes of capture, access to the file was restricted to personnel with specific clearance levels that don't officially exist in NASA's organizational structure. Someone inside the Webb program extracted the image before the lockdown completed and released it through encrypted channels that intelligence agencies are still trying to trace. The whistleblower left a message embedded in the file's XIF data, a single sentence repeated in binary code across thousands of metadata fields. They wanted you blind to this. The implication is clear. Whatever 3I/ATLAS represents, there are forces within our own governments that believe humanity isn't ready to know the truth. What makes the object truly terrifying isn't what it's doing, it's what it's not doing. 3I/ATLAS generates no detectable waste heat, despite clearly converting energy for propulsion and maneuvering. Thermodynamic laws state that any system converting energy must radiate excess heat as entropy. Yet Webb's thermal imaging shows the object maintains a surface temperature barely above cosmic background radiation, even as it executes maneuvers that would require a gigajoules of energy. This violates the second law of thermodynamics, one of the most fundamental principles in physics. The only theoretical technologies that could achieve this level of efficiency involve quantum vacuum engineering or zero-point energy extraction, concepts that exist only in highly speculative physics papers. If 3I/ATLAS is harnessing zero-point energy, it represents a civilization that has mastered technologies we haven't even begun to understand. Technologies that could, theoretically, manipulate space-time itself, render conventional weapons useless, and traverse galactic distances without regard for relativistic constraints. Amateur astronomers tracking the object noticed something that professional observatories initially dismissed. As 3I/ATLAS approached the inner solar system, it began shedding fragments, small debris pieces that separated from the main body and established independent orbits. These fragments weren't random. They positioned themselves in a perfect geometric formation, maintaining precise distances from each other while orbiting the sun in resonance patterns that required active station keeping. Within weeks, the fragments had arranged themselves into a three-dimensional constellation that, when viewed from Earth's perspective, forms a shape, not a circle, not a random scatter pattern, a glyph, an angular symbol with lines and vertices that archaeoastronomers have identified in ancient petroglyphs from disparate cultures across Earth. The same symbol appears in Bronze Age carvings in Scandinavia, pre-Columbian cave paintings in South America, and Neolithic stone arrangements in Central Asia. Civilizations separated by oceans and millennia all documented the same geometric pattern, and now it's been recreated in our solar system by an object that originated beyond our stars. The object's rotation presents another impossibility. High-speed imaging from the Hubble telescope before Webb took over shows that 3I/ATLAS spins on three simultaneous axes, something that physics says cannot happen naturally. A rigid body can only maintain stable rotation around one principal axis. Rotation on multiple axes requires active stabilization or internal gyroscopic systems. Yet here's this object, tumbling through space in a controlled multi-axis spin that generates a complex wobble pattern. When mathematicians analyzed the wobble, they discovered it encodes information. The precession of the rotation follows a sequence that matches prime numbers, then Fibonacci sequences, then mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio. It's not random tumbling. The object is displaying mathematical literacy through its physical movement, broadcasting knowledge of advanced mathematics through motion alone. This is deliberate communication from an intelligence that understands we would analyze its rotation and recognize the patterns. Deep field observations revealed the truly disturbing reality. When Webb pointed its instruments at the region of space from which 3I/ATLAS originated, analysts expected to see nothing, the empty void of interstellar space. Instead, they found structure, faint infrared signatures forming geometric patterns across light years of distance, networks of objects too cold and dark to see in normal wavelengths, but visible to Webb's unprecedented sensitivity. The patterns suggest a vast infrastructure, artificial constructs scattered throughout the local interstellar medium, way stations or markers forming pathways between stars. 3I/ATLAS isn't alone. It's part of a network, a single node in a transportation or communication system that spans distances we can barely comprehend. And if this network exists, it means the galaxy isn't empty wilderness. It's developed real estate. We're not pioneers exploring uncharted territory. We're primitives who just noticed the highway running through our backyard. Then the electromagnetic anomalies began. Within days of 3I/ATLAS's closest approach to Mars, the planet's ionosphere started fluctuating in ways that don't match solar activity models. Radio signals bouncing off Mars's upper atmosphere exhibited strange phase shifts and frequency drift that communications engineers couldn't explain through natural phenomena. More troubling, the Martian magnetometer network detected magnetic field distortions moving across the surface in wave patterns that originated from the direction of 3I/ATLAS's trajectory. These weren't solar wind effects. The waves moved too slowly, too deliberately, as if scanning the planet's subsurface structure. Within 72 hours, similar anomalies appeared in Earth's magnetosphere. Satellite networks detected localized magnetic field compressions passing through near-Earth space, invisible currents of force that disrupted GPS signals and caused unexplained glitches in communication satellites. Whatever 3I/ATLAS is doing, it's projecting some form of energy or field effect that reaches across millions of kilometers. It's touching us, probing our planet's electromagnetic defenses, testing our infrastructure without ever coming close enough to be considered a direct threat. Classified briefings at aerospace defense contractors contain information that never reach public channels. Engineers with security clearances reported that simulations of 3I/ATLAS's observed properties produced results that made no physical sense. When they modeled the object's mass based on its gravitational influence on passing asteroids, they calculated a density far below that of any known solid matter. The object appeared to have less mass than its volume should contain, as if much of its interior were empty space or composed of something that doesn't interact with gravity the way normal matter does. One simulation suggested the object might be partially phased into higher dimensions, existing simultaneously in our three-dimensional space and in geometric dimensions we cannot perceive. This isn't science fiction terminology. These are actual theoretical physics concepts that describe how exotic matter might behave under extreme conditions. If 3I/ATLAS utilizes higher dimensional engineering, it explains why our instruments can't measure it consistently. We're seeing a three-dimensional shadow of something that exists in more dimensions than we can observe. Biological researchers noticed something that astronomers missed. During the weeks after Webb's observation, mutation rates in deep space radiation monitoring experiments aboard the International Space Station increased by 17%. These experiments use bacteria and simple organisms to measure the biological effects of cosmic radiation. The mutation patterns didn't match known radiation signatures. Instead, the genetic changes exhibited non-random characteristics, specific base pair substitutions that seemed to encode viable genetic sequences rather than random damage. Geneticists analyzing the data found fragments that resembled promoter regions and regulatory elements from completely unknown genetic systems. It was as if information was being written into the DNA of these organisms by an external source. Some researchers theorize that 3I/ATLAS might be emitting some form of bioactive radiation, a carrier wave that could transmit genetic instructions across vast distances. If true, this represents a technology that could seed life across the galaxy or alter existing biology on target worlds. And we've been exposed to it for weeks without knowing. The silence from official channels tells its own story. Major space agencies have released no formal statements about 3I/ATLAS beyond the initial detection announcement 18 months ago. Press conferences promised for spectroscopic analysis results were quietly canceled. Peer-reviewed papers submitted by observatory teams have been stuck in editorial review for unprecedented lengths of time, with reviewers requesting data verification that authors cannot provide because the original observation logs have been classified retroactively. Scientific conferences that scheduled sessions on interstellar objects suddenly change programming without explanation. This coordinated suppression of information doesn't happen by accident. It requires agreement between governments, institutions, and scientific bodies worldwide. The only time such consensus emerges is when the information poses a threat to public stability. They're not hiding data to protect proprietary research or national security. They're managing a disclosure problem, controlling the release of information that could fundamentally alter human civilization's self-perception. Private aerospace companies with deep space monitoring capabilities have been equally silent, but for different reasons. Leaked internal communications from a major satellite operator reveal that their orbital assets detected unusual electromagnetic phenomena consistent with directed energy transmission during 3I/ATLAS's passage through the inner solar system. The company's legal team immediately classified the data and issued instructions forbidding employees from discussing the observations under pain of termination in legal action. The communications referenced potential dual-use technology implications, suggesting that whatever they detected could have military applications. If private companies are self-censoring out of fear that their observations might reveal advanced propulsion or energy technologies, it means 3I/ATLAS isn't just scientifically interesting. It's strategically valuable. Nations and corporations are already positioning themselves to exploit whatever knowledge can be extracted from this object, regardless of its origin or purpose. The mathematical analysis of 3I/ATLAS's light curve produced results that defy explanation. As the object rotates and tumbles, its brightness should vary predictably based on how much surface area reflects sunlight toward observers. But the brightness variations don't follow any predictable pattern. Instead, the light curve contains embedded periodicities at multiple timescales simultaneously, short oscillations nested within longer cycles, all of which combine to create a complex signal that appears random until analyzed with specific mathematical tools. When researchers applied wavelet transforms typically used to detect gravitational waves, the light curve resolved into clean sinusoidal components with frequencies that match the natural resonant modes of Earth's magnetosphere. The object is modulating its brightness at frequencies that would efficiently couple with Earth's magnetic field, potentially allowing it to transmit information directly into our planet's electromagnetic environment. This isn't passive reflection. This is active signaling using our own planet's magnetic field as the receiver. Then came the discovery that changed everything. A graduate research team analyzing archival data from previous interstellar object detections found something that had been overlooked. When they compared the trajectories of 1I/Oumuamua, 2I/Borisov, and now 3I/Atlas, the three objects didn't arrive from random directions in the sky. Their approach vectors, when traced backward, converge on a region of space only 30 light-years distant. All three objects originated from the same neighborhood, and possibly from the same source. More disturbing, when the team plotted the times of arrival against the distances traveled, the objects appeared to have been launched in sequence. Each one sent after the previous object would have already passed through our solar system. This implies coordination across decades or centuries, a long-term monitoring campaign using multiple probes spaced to provide continuous observation of our star system. We're not witnessing random interstellar debris. We're the target of sustained surveillance by an intelligence with patience, measured in generations, and technology that renders interstellar distance meaningless. The final image Webb captured before 3I/ATLAS passed behind the Sun reveals the most disturbing detail of all. In the highest resolution enhancement of the object's core, image processing specialists found a structure. Not a natural formation, not a geological feature, but an assembly, a framework of intersecting beams or supports forming a lattice that extends beyond the visible surface into the object's interior. The structure's design follows principles of tensegrity architecture, a building technique that uses isolated compression elements within a network of continuous tension cables to create incredibly strong yet lightweight structures. This is advanced engineering concept that humans only developed in the 20th century. Seeing it in an interstellar object suggests either convergent engineering evolution or direct technological lineage. The structure isn't hidden or camouflaged. It's visible in the image for anyone with processing software to see. Whoever built 3I/ATLAS didn't care about hiding their work. They wanted us to recognize it for what it is, artificial, intentional, and completely beyond our current capabilities to replicate or understand. Now 3I/ATLAS has passed behind the Sun, entering a weeks-long observation blackout where no Earth-based telescope can track its position or behavior. By the time it emerges on the far side of our star, it will be accelerating outward, heading back toward interstellar space along a trajectory that will take it nowhere near any other stellar systems for thousands of years. Unless it changes course again. Unless it accomplished whatever mission brought it here and is now departing to file its report. Some researchers believe the object was never meant to approach Earth directly. Its purpose was to observe our response to its presence, to measure how an emerging technological civilization reacts to obvious evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. We're not the subject being studied. Our reactions are the data. Our scientific institutions, our governments, our military organizations, all of these systems have revealed their capabilities and limitations simply by how they responded to 3I/ATLAS's passage. We've been cataloged, assessed, and filed away in some vast database of civilizations awaiting first contact, and we don't know if we passed the test or failed it spectacularly. The implications cascade outward like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. If 3I/ATLAS represents technology from an advanced civilization, then the Great Silence isn't silence at all. They're out there. They're watching. They simply aren't interested in overt contact with species that haven't reached sufficient maturity. Or worse, they're avoiding us deliberately, quarantining Earth until we either develop past some threshold of danger or eliminate ourselves through technologies we're not wise enough to control. Every radio signal we've broadcast into space for the past century has been heard and ignored. Every spacecraft we've launched has been observed and dismissed. We're the cosmic equivalent of an uncontacted tribe on a remote island, visible to the outside world but considered too primitive for meaningful interaction. And like those isolated tribes, we have no idea what kind of universe exists beyond our tiny sphere of awareness. But there's another possibility, one that keeps astronomers awake at night. What if 3I/ATLAS isn't a probe from a thriving galactic civilization? What if it's a relic, the last surviving artifact of a species that no longer exists? Ancient von Neumann machines, self-replicating probes launched millions of years ago by civilizations that have since collapsed into extinction, leaving only their autonomous explorers to wander the galaxy forever. These machines might still be executing their original programming, gathering data for masters who died before Earth even formed. If this is true, then the galaxy is a graveyard. Advanced civilizations arise, flourish briefly on cosmic timescales, then vanish, leaving behind only their robots to continue mapping a universe that no longer cares about their discoveries. And if previous civilizations couldn't survive the challenges of technological advancement, what chance do we have? Are we destined to follow the same path, creating wonders we cannot control, launching our own probes into a future where humanity is just another entry in the archive of extinct species? The truth is, we don't know. We can't know. Not yet. What we do know is that the universe just became infinitely stranger and more terrifying than we imagined. The James Webb Telescope, in its quest to peer deeper into space than ever before, has shown us something that cannot be unseen or ignored. We are not alone. We have never been alone. And whatever shares this cosmos with us operates on scales and with technologies that make our greatest achievements look like children's toys. The objects are still out there. More will come. They always have. We just weren't looking carefully enough to see them. But now we've seen, now we know. And that knowledge changes everything. So here's what I need you to do. Don't just watch this video and move on. Share it, talk about it, question it, demand answers from the institutions that claim to serve public knowledge but keep secrets like this locked behind classification barriers. Comment below with your theories, your fears, your hopes for what comes next. Subscribe if you want to stay informed as more information emerges, because this story isn't over. It's barely begun. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us start asking the right questions, we'll force the truth into the light where it belongs. What do you think 3I/ATLAS really is? A probe? A message? A warning? Or something we don't even have words for yet? The universe is listening. The question is, are you ready to answer back?